So today we'll be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Now we've already talked about parallel a little bit, but if you have forgotten, then this video will remind you. Okay, so parallel and perpendicular lines. So you don't have to draw this, I'm just showing you. Here's a parallel lines basically they go in the same direction, right? They never cross. Okay, perpendicular lines, they cross. So that's perpendicular line, but they have to cross at 90 degrees. Okay, it has to be perfect. So they can't just be like two lines crossing barely. That's not perpendicular. They have to that says 90 degrees. That's more important for geometry next year, but I mean that's what a perpendicular line is. They cross perfectly at a 90-degree angle. Kind of like the wall and the floor. They are perpendicular to each other because it creates a 90-degree angle. Okay? So, parallel versus perpendicular. This is a very, very important slide. Like, you need to write down everything, okay? The most important thing you need to remember about parallel lines. Oh my god, I can never spell parallel, my bad. Parallel lines have the same slope. The exact same number. So, what some of y'all got wrong before was like 5 and -5, those are different. They have different slopes. It has to be the exact same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. And the symbol for parallel is like this. Okay? Perpendicular, this is where it gets a little weird. But we're going to work through it today. Perpendicular lines have, and then you're going to have to just spell this out because it's probably a word you're not used to, opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay? Opposite. So there's opposite. Make sure you spell reciprocal correctly. R-E-C-I-P-R-O-C-A-L. Opposite reciprocal slopes. Now, you're probably saying, I have no idea what that is. And that's fine. I'm going to show you that today. So, parallel lines have the same slope. That's easy. Parallel lines are easier. Perpendicular lines, see, can't spell, have opposite reciprocal slopes. Alright? So, we're going to take a minute to talk about opposite reciprocals. Okay? Opposite reciprocals. Okay? So, here's all you have to know for opposite reciprocals, okay? All you do is you flip the numbers. Flip the numbers. Okay? And the second thing you do is you switch the sign. And what I mean by that is if it's positive, you make it negative. If it's negative, you make it positive. So, wow, I can't spell positive either. Look at that. Okay, so all you do is you flip the numbers and you switch the sign. So real quick, go ahead and write this down. 4/5. Okay, so let's say the slope was 4/5. The opposite reciprocal means you just flip the numbers. So instead of 4/5, it would be 5/4. Okay? And this is positive, so then this would be negative. And that's all you're doing is you flip the numbers. Okay? One more time. Let's say, we're going to practice this in a little bit, but let's say you just had -3. You're going to say, well, how am I going to flip that? Well, remember when we did rise over run, if it's not a fraction, you put it over 1, right? And then we flip it. So it would be 1/3. And then since this is negative, this needs to be positive. Okay? So opposite reciprocal, all you do is you flip the number and then you change the sign. So let's practice that a little bit. So write the opposite reciprocal. So go ahead and write that down. Write the opposite reciprocal. On your assignment today, you're going to have to do this. So number 1 is 2/3. If you want to go ahead and do it on your own and then play it and see if you got it right, fantastic. If not, just do it with me. Okay? So 2/3, we got to flip it. So it would be 3/2. Okay? And since that's positive, then this is going to be negative. All you're going to do. Okay? Number 2 is 4. Yet again, if you want to see if you can do it, pause it and then try it. And if not, just do it with me. This is not a fraction, so we put it over 1. Okay? And then we flip the numbers. So instead of 4/1, we put 1/4. And then this is positive, so the opposite would be negative. Okay? Pretty simple. And then this one here, -3/1. So we're going to flip it to 3/1. And then since this is positive, or negative, this is going to be positive. And then you can, so if you put that, that's technically correct, but you could reduce that. 3 over 1 is just the same thing as 3. Okay, so either one would be correct, but this is more correct because it's simplified. Alright, so when you get opposite reciprocals down, then we're good to go. Okay, so I need you to write down this problem exactly as it says. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Here's what they're really going to ask you on the assignment today as well as on your STAR test. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? And I have 2 lines here. Okay, so real quick. Parallel, so, well, hang on, real quick, write these down. Y equals 3x plus 4, and y equals negative 1/3 x plus 7. Okay? So, parallel lines mean, if you need to remember, the same slope. Parallel lines mean the same slope. Since these are already solved for y, the slope here is 3, and the slope here is negative 1/3. Obviously, they're not the same, so they are not parallel. We can tell that right now. Okay? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals. So this is 3, right? So that's the same thing as 3 over 1. And then to do the opposite reciprocal, you flip it and then make it negative, or switch the sign. So the opposite of 3 over 1 is 1 over 3. And this is positive, so we put a negative. Is this slope over here negative 1/3? And you're going to say yes, that they are opposite reciprocals. So therefore, they are perpendicular. Okay? So how you're going to write that is, you would, show me that, and then you would say, the lines, you should be writing this down, are perpendicular. And then here's the important part, so perpendicular, because, I need to know why, because the slopes are, and do not spell this wrong because I've spelled it for you a bunch of times, so if you need to look for your assignment how to spell it, look at your notes. Because they are opposite reciprocals. Or you could put because 3 is the opposite reciprocal of negative 1. However you want to write it, I just need to see all that with a capital letter or capital letter and a period. Indicate that. Okay? Let's do another one. These are all important, so don't, skip out on one. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Okay, and I have 2 lines. So write that one down. 2x plus 3y equals 15. 6x plus 9y equals 18. Okay, so these are not solved for y, so I need to solve them. I need to draw my line. The opposite of positive 2x is negative 2x. Alright, these go away. You're left with a positive 3y equals, and that's negative 2x plus 15. And then you divide by positive 3. This should be familiar. We're used to this, hopefully. So y equals, you put this in the calculator, but I'm just telling you negative 2 divided by 3 is just negative 2/3 x. And then a positive 15 divided by 3 is a positive 5. Okay? That one's done. Let's go do the other one. I'm going to draw my line here. I'm going to subtract 6x. That goes away. I'm left with 9y equals negative 6x plus 18. If you put 18 minus 6x, that's fine. And then we divide by 9. Okay? So, calculator, negative 6 divided by 9 is a decimal. If you can kind of see that. My shadow's in the way. And then you math, enter, and you get negative 2/3. So, negative 2/3 x. And 18 plus 9 is just, or 18 divided by 9 is 2. Okay? So, are these slopes parallel? Parallel lines have the same slope. The slope here is negative 2/3. This slope here is negative 2/3. So, yes, they are parallel because they have the same slope. So, you're going to write that. Yes, they are parallel. And parallel. Because you can put they have the same slope, or I'm going to put they have a slope of negative 2/3. However you want to write it, basically indicate that they have the same slope. Okay? Getting it? Alright. Last example. Wait, hang on. Yeah, last example. Are these lines parallel? This is a symbol for perpendicular. I forgot to tell you that, but that's a symbol for perpendicular. So parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay? Go ahead and write this problem down. 2y equals 6x plus 4. And then this problem. 6 minus 1x equals 3y. And the reason why I did this is because they're not always, like, solving for y might look differently. Okay? So we're going to draw our line here. And this looks different, but I don't want you to freak out. Your y, your best friends too, you're not hanging out with anyone else. So all you have to do is get rid of the best friend. So all we're going to do is divide by 2. Okay? 6 divided by 2 is 3x. Okay? And a positive 4 divided by 2 is a positive 2. Okay? So that's how, I mean, a lot of y'all are really good at solving for y when it's like 6x plus 2y, but when it looks different, y'all kind of freak out. This also looks different because the y is over here, but that's okay. We're solving for y. So who are you? You're y. Your best friend's 3. You're not hanging out with anyone else. So we're just going to get rid of the 3 by dividing. Everything divided by 3. Okay? 6 divided by 3 is 2. And I'll just tell you, that's a negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 3 is just negative 1/3 x equals y. It's the same thing. Okay? So, are these lines parallel? This slope here is 3. This is negative 1/3. Are they the same? Nope. So they are not parallel. Perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular are opposite reciprocals. So this is 3. That's like 3 over 1, right? And the opposite of 3 over 1, we flip it, is 1/3. That's positive, and this is negative. So is this negative 1/3? And you're going to say, yes, it is. So these lines are perpendicular. So these lines are perpendicular. You need to explain why. Remember, these words need to be spelled correctly because I've shown you how to spell them. They should be written correctly in your notes. These lines are perpendicular because the slopes are opposite reciprocals. Okay? Now, real quick, if they weren't parallel and they weren't perpendicular, then you would just say these lines are not parallel and they are not perpendicular. They are neither. Okay? So, parallel should be easy. That's the easy one. Perpendicular is a little harder. But try your best. Ask me questions when you need to, and then get started.